Hello YouTube, in this video I'm going to be making a mutant creature from the movie Freaked. It's a movie that starred Alex Winter, who is the guy that played Bill in Bill and Ted's. I quite often use these doll heads as starting points, and I normally pick them up at car boot sales or charity shops, and I usually spend about £2 or £3 each on them. I begin by chopping off all of their hair. So in this movie, Freaked, the character played by Alex Winter is called Coogan, and he ends up getting mixed up with some toxic waste and basically starts mutating. He goes through various stages, and I'm going to make the stage where he's really fully mutated. You can see my next stage is just to cover the whole thing with aluminium foil and to loosely kind of squash it into a rough form. Then I cover all of this with a layer of kitchen paper and super PVA glue. The super PVA glue is much stronger than normal PVA glue. You can use wood flooring PVA as well, but don't use normal PVA because it's not strong enough. I just paint on a layer of the super PVA glue, and then I put some of this kitchen paper on, and then I paint over the top of that, and I keep building up layers until I've covered the whole thing. Once this dries, it is really tough. It forms a really tough skin on this with the super PVA. Next, I wanted to start forming the mouth. So again, I've just made this lower jaw out of some more aluminium foil, squashed really roughly into place. And I've stuck it on with some more PVA glue, and I'm going to go over the top of this again with more layers of the kitchen paper just to build it up. You can see here I've also started making the eyes. The eyes on this particular creature, they're not round like balls, they're kind of a bit more pointy, kind of like long egg shapes. So I've made them roughly, and then I'll smooth more Milliput into it to make it a better shape later. So this is with the layers of kitchen paper and PVA glue added. This will really hold this lower jaw in place really nice and firmly. I've made a tongue that I'm going to stick on next, and then I can begin making the upper jaw as well. You're probably used to seeing me using standard Milliput, which is a kind of a yellow-grey colour. In this video I'm going to be using turquoise blue Milliput. Here you can see that I've added the kitchen paper and PVA glue over the tongue, and I've also added the upper jaw and again coated that with more kitchen paper and PVA glue. When that all dries, it will be really firm. So here I've made all of the teeth individually and just put them on a layer of aluminium foil while they set. If you haven't used Milliput before, it's a two-part putty. You mix the two parts together in equal amounts and it sets rock hard at room temperature in about 4 hours. So this is the process I quite often use with my movie creatures that I make. I do a lot of the main form out of cheap materials like aluminium foil, and then all of the detail kind of outside kind of skin, if you like, and then any little fiddly bits I do with Milliput. So the eyes there, you can see I'd refined them. The teeth, I've added more kind of grooves and things into them. I did that when they were kind of almost set. That allows you to kind of go in and add some of these kind of sharper details. And now they have set, they're nice and rock hard, and they're ready to go into some gums when I push the gums on. You can see obviously I made the nose as well. So here I just made two kind of long sausages and pushed one onto the top jaw, one onto the bottom jaw, and that made a nice kind of gum line, and then I could just simply push the teeth into the gums. Really easy way of getting teeth set into some quite realistic looking gums. Then you can see here with the eyes, I've just gone and sanded them a little bit. You can sand Milliput, that's what's great about it, is once it is kind of rock hard, it can be sanded quite easily, and you can refine it and smooth it down quite a lot. Okay, as well as the front edge to the upper lip, I've stuck the eyes on, and I've used more Milliput to attach it onto the kind of head that I've done already. And then I've done the kind of eyebrow ridges, just again out of some more aluminium foil, as you can see, and then I'll go over those with some more kitchen paper and PVA glue. The ears, I've just put on those kind of long bits of foil ready to kind of mould onto with more Milliput, more foil and more kitchen paper. and more PVA glue. You can see I've added into kind of where the upper lip is now, smoothed it over, and this means that I can really kind of make the jaw a bit wider, really kind of refine the shape of it a bit more. There's obviously all of the textures and things to go on, like skin textures, they all go on right at the end, just prior to painting. But apart from that, I've still got to build up a lot more shape. His jaw ends up being quite a bit wider. So you can see I've just added a bit more Milliput, the front corners of the jaw. That brings that out. And you can see I've used Milliput to make the main kind of folds of skin in the ears. Right, it's all the detail bits that take the time, like making the teeth took quite a while, but the skin texture as well. So you can see here I just basically make a very thin layer of Milliput and just put it over like the eyebrow ridges or that sort of upper jaw, and then I just press down into it with various modeling tools to give me that kind of skin texture effect. And yeah, that took quite a while to do, but it's going to be really worth it when it's painted. Right, I'm really lucky because this channel is sponsored by Milliput and they send me free Milliput boxes from time to time. That can be standard Milliput or turquoise Milliput. There are other colours as well, like black, terracotta, there's some super fine white, there's a metallic Milliput. There's all kinds of different ones, so I recommend you go and have a look and see what's available and choose one depending on your needs. This is the turquoise blue box here, look. And yeah, you can either buy a single pack or you can buy a box like this which has got 10 packs in it. So in an individual pack you get 2 sticks, and here's the 2 sticks. Look, they come in these kind of cellophane wrappers, and you undo them, and then basically you could mix all of this together in one go. But what I more often than not do is just break a bit off, like an inch or a couple of inches, and then you've got to take a couple of inches from the other side as well. So they're in equal parts, and then you mix those 2 parts together. Right, you can see I've added a lot more detail to this now. This ended up taking ages, but actually I didn't mind because I just really love this particular kind of mutant monster guy. He's just really cool looking, and the colour scheme on him is amazing as well. The original creature design was done by a guy called Screaming Mad George, who's like an amazing makeup artist. He's done so many kind of other movies and things that are, I think, fantastic. There's a particularly weird movie called Society, which I really love. It's so unusual, and it's got all these kind of mutated people in it. And yeah, just you've got to see it really to believe it. Anyway, you can see I added all the kind of wrinkles into the lips. I've put this on to kind of heighten him because he needed more space. He has actually like a big sort of hunchback in the movie, so I'm going to add a bit of a hunchback onto him, and then he's going to be wearing like a shirt and tie. So I've still got all that to do. But you can see here where I've just attached more onto the bottom. I've gone around with duct tape to strengthen it, and then I'll go over all of this with more like kitchen paper and more PVA glue to give it that really tough outer skin. It's always at this kind of point where I've got so much of the detail in that it's just so close to being ready. I just want to get on and paint it, but I know I've still got more bulking out to do with the body. So here you go. This is with a bit of a hunch added. I've done a bit more detail into the kind of the wrinkles and things on the lips, and that works really well. Again, I can see all of the textures there. It shows up really nicely with the turquoise Milliput, but I just want to get on and paint it. You can see on his neck I needed to add all of these kind of folds of skin and things, and those were just done with more aluminium foil, just all kind of squashed up, and then the PVA glue, kitchen paper added over the top again to strengthen it. And those, when it's all painted, obviously it all ties in together. It doesn't matter that some of it is turquoise blue Milliput and some of it is kitchen paper and PVA glue, because it all just gets tied in with the colours. Okay, you can see I've used a whole kind of a sort of a cushion pad of foam in here, and that's really easy to cut. So I was able to put that in and then just use duct tape again to kind of pull it tight and give me that nice kind of hunchback kind of look. And yeah, the duct tape keeps it all in place, and again I can go over all of this with kitchen paper and PVA glue. At this point I started running out of the turquoise blue Milliput, and all I had left was some black Milliput. The black Milliput's fine, it works obviously in exactly the same way as normal standard Milliput. The only problem I find with it is that you can't see the details as much while you're sculpting because it's not as bright. So all of the kind of deep areas kind of merge in a bit with the higher areas, but it's still really nice to work with. And you can see I used it here basically just to make the ears, so the ears actually continue right down, right to the kind of neck flaps, if you like, and it all sort of merges in. So I was able to put all extra details into the ears all the way along this kind of outside edge, and just sculpt more of the kind of bumpy textures into that as well. This just made me want to paint it even more, because I know when I paint it I can paint it all one colour and then it suddenly becomes all uniform. When I do start painting this, I'm going to use a very dark sort of maroony colour as my base, and again because it's a dark colour you kind of lose a lot of the detail for the initial stage, and I don't really like that because at the moment I can see all of the detail quite nicely with the turquoise blue Milliput. But you have to go through stages with all of these models. I mean, you saw with this one, for example, just how many really bad stages it went through before it ended up looking good. And you just have to put up with that. You just have to say, look, it's a work in progress. It's going to go through quite a few stages where it just looks like a lump. And then gradually all the details come. Okay, this is with him painted with just a layer of maroon coloured paint. I use System 3 acrylic paints to do all of my painting on my creatures, unless I'm using an airbrush, and then I use liquid acrylics. So for this one I used cadmium red and a little bit of emerald green. That gave me this nice maroony colour. The reason that I started with a dark colour on this is because the dark gets really deep down into all of those kind of deepest, darkest places, and then anything that you do dry brush goes onto the top surface and really shows up, like all the highlights and all of the bumps and things like that. They all just really pop in the end. I really wanted to spend a good amount of time doing the paint job on this particular creature just because it's so unique looking and I love all the colours on it. They're kind of subtle but really kind of quite realistic, and yeah, I just wanted to copy them as much as I could to get an exact kind of look of what was in the movie. So here you can see I've started dry brushing a sort of a olivey green. So I used a mix of, again, the emerald green with some yellow ochre, and I've just dry brushed this on. So if you haven't done dry brushing before, you get some paint on a really rough old brush, and then you brush it really hard on a piece of kitchen paper to get most of the paint off, so there's hardly anything left on the brush, and then you just basically dust it over all of the high areas where you want the colour to be, and you can see what it does is it leaves all of the original colour in the deepest, darkest places, like the cracks in between those kind of skin bumps and that sort of thing, and it really starts to make it pop. Even at this stage, before I've gone in with brighter colours, it's just working straight away. Yeah, the way I think of dry brush is like you're sort of dusting on a fine layer, almost like a powdery layer over the top. And you can see I've done it here as well with a lighter kind of pink colour. That was basically just my maroon, original maroon colour, and I just added some white to it. Hardly any, but just enough to kind of start dusting that on again, these kind of higher places, and you can see it brings them out. It just really makes it look like more three-dimensional. I know it's a three-dimensional object anyway, but you're kind of trying to emphasize its three-dimensional qualities. Okay, the next bit is the bit that I've been really looking forward to for a long time, and that was doing the teeth. The teeth, I just mixed this kind of bone colour to start with, which was basically yellow ochre with a tiny bit of black to kind of grey it down, and then just a tiny bit of white. And that was the base colour for the teeth. And I painted the teeth all in that colour to start with. Then I've gone over with the same colour again, but with more kind of white added to it. And that means that I can dust that on again, like over the top surfaces, and it really makes those teeth kind of pop out. The tongue and the gums were all painted pink as well, and that was just cadmium red and white, maybe a touch of yellow ochre, but not much. And that gave me that different kind of pink. You can see like the pink on the lips is a completely different pink to the one on the tongue and on the gums. Next I've got to paint the eyes. Wait for it, and if only it was that quick to actually paint them in real life. So I painted them an off-white to start with, and then I painted all of the little veins over the top. And obviously those have to be, you know, darkest near the head and then fading towards where the iris is. The irises I painted green, and then I went in with a lighter green, and then I did the black pupils. And it's just trying to get those as round as possible. And I think I did a reasonably good job. They look pretty cool. Later I'm going to end up lacquering all of this as well to give it a kind of a shiny effect, because he looks pretty kind of wet and slimy in real life. You can probably see that I've continued to dry brush more and more over the top, and I keep just slightly brightening the greens a little bit and dusting it over, and that just makes each kind of bump stand out even more, makes it pop. I've just got to be really careful not to get any of the light colours into any of the kind of dark cracks or anything like that, because they need to remain looking really deep. Like I said before, I really love the colour scheme of this particular monster. I don't know why, there's something about him that reminds me of my childhood. It could be to do with, do you remember the Haunted House pop-up book? I had that when I was a kid, and it was a green book, and I'm sure it had like purple or pink writing on it. It could be that. It could also be there was a creature that used to be on the TV called Gilbert the Alien, and he reminds me a little bit of him. Right, at this point I'm just about to spray lacquer him, so have a look at him now. This is him before the spray lacquer, and then I took him outside, gave him a really good spray of the lacquer, and here he is now. So he looks wet, definitely. He has that shiny look about him. I put more where the eyes are, and I put more in the mouth area because I wanted obviously him to look wetter inside his mouth and on his eyes. But I mean, he looks pretty wet all over, to be honest. What I do end up doing is now dry brushing again, just a little bit more over some of the high points. So he loses a bit of the wet look, but like I say, he remains wet inside his mouth, on his teeth and his eyes. Those are the important bits. It gets the best of both worlds if you do that. You don't have to necessarily spray something and the whole thing be completely shiny, but I do like this kind of look, and also it does add an extra layer of protection to your paint. Sometimes with acrylic paint, although it's really good, if you were to kind of scrape your model against a wall or something like that, it would probably scrape some of the paint off. So it doesn't hold on as well as you might hope that it would. But like I say, with a layer of lacquer, that protects the paint and stops any from scratching off. It doesn't matter with me if some of my paint does scratch off from time to time, because I can mix the colour perfectly and put it back on, and that's fine. Right, this is the finished result. Hopefully you can see that I've dry brushed some even brighter greens on, which I think really makes him pop. And it's a really nice contrast between the green and the pinky purple kind of colour of his lips. You can see I've also added a shirt and a tie. I decided just to do those white. In the movie it's more like a sort of I don't know, I want to say like a fleshy colour, or you know, a slightly beigey colour. For this though, because it's a model, the white really makes the whole kind of face show up a bit more, and also just white is a kind of an instantly recognisable shirt colour anyway. You can see I used cardboard to make the collar of the shirt. I used an actual tie, and I actually cut up an old shirt and I just nicked the collar from it and put that on, and that's made quite a difference. It makes it obviously look like a realistic collar because it is one. Saved me making it. For the really coarse hairs that are just on the top of his head, I used bristles from a dustpan and brush. I just cut them off, and then I made little tiny holes using a tiny drill, and I just stuck them in place. If you kind of pull them through your fingernails, you can get them to curl up a little bit as well. And then I just painted them with black acrylic paint. Once that had dried, I did another coat of black acrylic paint, and I did that 3 or 4 times until they were nice and thick. Anyway, this one ended up taking me far longer than I was hoping it would, but there is a lot of detail involved in it, and I'm really pleased with the overall outcome. It's going to look great in amongst all my other kind of movie creatures. He's going to stand out. Not many people will probably recognise him because he's not a well-known movie character, but I suggest that you all go out and watch that movie because, like I say, it's a pretty quirky movie. There are some really great creature effects in the movie, mostly thanks to Screaming Mad George. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Hit subscribe to see anything that I post up in the future. Thanks to Milliput for sponsoring this channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.